A shadow, bigger than a car, slides across the ridge. No engine, no roar. How does a bird do that, in air so thin your lungs complain? In the Miocene, 9 to 6 million years ago, Argentavis turned the Andes into a machine. Thermals as ladders, ridge lift as rails, wings as knives. If size means clumsy, why did the largest bird to ever fly move like a whisper? And if silence hunts, what else is hunting you? Timing, terrain, or fear? Something about this glider breaks the rules we teach about power. Look up, breathe, watch the sky. Something is off, and not just the weather. Here's the part that matters today. We think apex predators wear teeth and roar, but Argentavis ruled with timing. It weaponized patience, air, and angle, turning energy economics into dominance. That's not ancient trivia, it's a survival playbook. Read the wind, schedule risk, let the world lift you. Ever wonder why some people cross the same mountains you do and arrive rested? They map invisible currents, then step when the air says go. In a minute, I'll show you the behavior that flips the script on scavenger versus predator, and why it changes how we read the Andes. And that was just the beginning. He didn't flap so much as arrive. Over a serrated Andean ridge, a dark shape slid across stone like a moving eclipse, and every guanaco on the slope froze. If you've ever watched a condor, double it, then add a hooked beak that looks custom-built for trouble, and you're getting warm on Argentavis, the largest bird to ever fly. The Miocene wind sang thin and cold, and the silhouette just kept growing. You'd swear the air pressure changed when those wings turned. Big things are usually clumsy. This thing was poetry. And yet, what it needed from the sky wasn't what you think. You can pin the time frame, 9 to 6 million years ago, late Miocene, when the Andes were still flexing upward and thermals stacked like invisible stairways. Estimates put wingspan at roughly 6 to 7 meters, mass in the ballpark of a large person, and bone walls thin enough to keep the aerodynamics honest. Launch points weren't runways, they were cliffs and knife-edged saddles. Argentavis likely rode thermals and ridge lift, spending energy like a miser, gliding for miles while scanning for carrion or a careless mammal. Think soaring strategy, not sprint. That seems obvious until you test one unsettling scenario in the thin air. Here's the human-sized truth. If you were there, hiking a narrow Andean track with the wind in your teeth, you wouldn't hear it coming. Predators that glide rewrite the rules of fear. No drumbeat of wings, no warning, just a growing shadow and a hooked beak that says you're on the menu only if the math works. In today's terms, picture a wingspan wider than your living room, a glider with talons, picking its moments with brutal patience. Survival isn't about outrunning. It's about not being seen on the wrong slope at the wrong hour. But a single bone forces a different reading of that patience. He kept the blueprint simple: big span, light frame, ruthless efficiency. Hold a fossil humerus of Argentavis and you feel it, thick where stress peaks, thin where it can afford to be, a pneumatic tube tuned by wind and time. Across the chest, the keel anchored flight muscles. The coracoid braced the shoulder like a flying truss. Every joint whispers the same agenda: glide first, flap rarely. Modern condors give you the vibe, but this was the Miocene's heavy lift model, built for long thermals, ridge lift, and lazy S-turns over the Andes while the world below made mistakes. Wings this wide change how a landscape feels. Numbers back the vibe. Wing loading stays low, aspect ratio trends high, and the stall speed begs for wind and altitude, exactly what Miocene Andes thermals served daily. Picture a paraglider pilot choosing a launch. Short sprint, quick hop, Then gravity hands the bill to rising air. Argentavis likely did the same. Cliff launches into headwinds, trading meters of drop for kilometers of glide, while the sun pumped columns of lift. Flapping? Rare. Expensive. Saved for emergencies. Once airborne, the bird turned slope, sun, and sky into a calculator, solving for energy it didn't have to spend, minute after cold minute, and quiet survival. Meaning, a glider this size turns patience into a weapon. Like today's condors and vultures, it could ghost along for hours, letting the Andes do the lifting while it scanned for carrion or vulnerable prey. If humans had shared that skyline, smart habits follow. Travel early or late when thermals sleep. Hug cover on exposed traverses, keep groups tight, and stash camps under overhangs. You'd post a skywatcher the way we post a door guard. But here's the twist. The skull and beak don't just whisper scavenger, they hint at selective strikes. And one feeding tray suggests a behavior nobody wanted to see up close. Reset the picture. Wind like cold glass on your cheeks, a skyline of fractured stone, and a shadow that doesn't behave like weather. The Miocene Andes weren't just mountains, they were machines for lift, and Argentavis was the operator who knew every lever. If a glider that big saves energy by waiting, what exactly is it waiting for? A carcass or a mistake? Watch the angles of the beak, the leverage in the neck, the way wide wings set a trap of silence. Scavenger fits the story, sure, but the bones keep whispering a different verb. The next slope tests it. Picture a high puna meadow where the wind never quite shuts up. A fox-sized runner zigzags between low shrubs, then freezes as a shadow erases the sun. No drum roll, no wing thunder, just a hooked beak and a flick of wings that cuts air like a scalpel. If Argentavis fed like a condor, it waited for carrion. If it hunted like a teratorn, it went after small to mid-sized mammals, the way a patient fisherman waits for one wrong ripple. What I see in the fossils is a budget of violence, spent carefully, but the receipt lists an odd charge. The beak ends in a strong hook for tearing, the tomial edge likely sharp enough to start rips without dainty tools. The neck promises torque. The keel and shoulder say glide first, but don't ban short bursts. The feet probably weren't vice-grip talons like an eagle's, closer to condor utility, so seizing a large, struggling animal mid-air seems unlikely. But think ground tactics. Drop low along a slope, bluff a herd into a stumble, then hammer the head or soft tissue once the scramble begins. Not a sprinter's kill, more like a glider's trap. One trace clinches the hunch. On several large mammal bones, grooves and scoring patterns look less like neat cleanup and more like early access, marks you'd expect when a big bird gets to tissue while it's still warm. That suggests opportunistic predation, not chasing down gazelles like a comic book, but claiming the moment when terrain and panic line up. If humans shared that Miocene skyline, survival would be practical. Move early or late when thermals sleep, hug cover on ridges, travel in tight groups, and carry poles to make your outline larger during crossings. Most days that playbook works, until a weather shift rewrites the math mid-traverse. Weather turns ambush into physics. On an Andean knife edge, a warm thermal blooms, then collapses and the ridgewind snaps sideways like a sprung trap, sudden and mean. The shadow of Argentavis stretches, buckles, and steadies again, a moving omen that makes even condors hold. You don't hear panic, you hear subtraction. Lift vanishing, room shrinking, choices narrowing at altitude. The great glider tilts, rides a ribbon of ridge lift, then threads rotors that could fold a smaller bird. Out here, the Miocene sky isn't blue, it's a machine with levers. Pull the wrong one, and wings become questions no one wants answered. Here's why weather ruled its calendar. Thermals peak late morning to mid-afternoon. Evening brings laminar flow and long, forgiving lines.
Low wing loading plus a high aspect ratio buys a low stall speed and gorgeous glide. Yet it also invites punishment from sharp sink and shear. Think paraglider polar curves. The slower you fly, the less sink, until turbulence steals the margin. Argentavis likely launched with headwind and altitude in hand, reading cloud streets, dust devils, and the twitch of grass. A storm line? Wait. A fun wind? Avoid leeward like fire. Survival was scheduling, and the sky kept strict books. Meaning for survival then and now. Big gliders don't fight mountains, they schedule them. Travel windows matter. If humans shared that skyline, you plan crossings early or late, post a skywatcher, hug cover on exposed spines, and mark bailout gullies as religiously as water sources. For field folks today, the rule still helps. Time your hikes, read clouds, trust wind signs more than the forecast. If this kind of deep dive helps you see the Andes with new eyes, tap subscribe, then keep your head on a swivel, because the safest path is the one that ends in a landing zone, unless those ledges hold something stranger. Reset your senses. Those safe ledges? They aren't just rest stops. Some look arranged, whitewashed by droppings, littered with hair and bone, like someone kept coming back. Cliff ledges tell on their tenants. Whitewash spatter, hair mats, and a tumble of polished bones make a calling card, and on certain Andean shelves, the pattern repeats. Picture Argentavis returning to the same wind-cleaned perch, talons scuffing grit, the hooked beak working through tough hide while the Miocene dusk goes violet. First roost, second feed, watch always. Big gliders love edges because edges do the heavy lifting. Ridge lift at dawn, lemon glide at dusk. A ledge isn't just a seat, it's a launch pad, a pantry, and a lookout stacked into one cliffside line item that turns air into savings day after lean day. Breeding strategies scale with wings. Condors don't weave nests so much as claim ledges, and Argentavis likely did the same. A minimalist scrape of stones and fibers more calendar than architecture. One egg, maybe two. Long incubation, longer juvenile dependence. That's the K-selected drumbeat gliders keep. Bone histology hints at slower growth. Feather molt cycles would have paced the year like a metronome. Adults commuted on thermals, then regurgitated calories into a chick begging at the ledge. Energy economics rule here. Fly far, feed deep, rest long. If there was a colony, social signals would ripple across the skyline, except one signal doesn't fit the routine we expect. Why this matters to survival is simple math. A colony, even a loose one, creates traffic patterns. Morning departures with headwinds, evening returns riding ridge flow, midday spirals over reliable carcass grounds. If humans shared that skyline, we'd plan crossings between those pulses, keep profile low near suspected roosts, and camp under overhangs outside a ledge's line of sight. Fieldcraft today echoes it. Mark guano fans on topo maps, avoid thermal hotspots at peak hour, and track wind lanes. Predictable rhythm keeps you safe, until a roost goes empty for weeks, then refills overnight, as if the cliff followed a map we haven't read. Maps, if you're Argentavis, aren't drawn in ink, they're drawn in winds. The Miocene Andes offered repeatable corridors. Morning ridge lift scrolled east-west along knife edges, midday thermals bubbled over sunburned slopes, and evening glass-off stitched valleys together. Carcass waves moved with droughts, herd routes, and sudden cold snaps, and the big glider learned the pattern. Follow the lift, find the carrion, arrive first. When storms broke the calendar, it shifted altitude, surfing laminar lines while smaller scavengers flailed. In a world like that, territory isn't fences, it's timing. Get the timing wrong, and 6 meters of wings turn into anchors, unless a darker strategy cuts the cue.
Competition shaped those routes. On the Pampas and High Puna, land predators opened carcasses, but air overlords finished the math. Picture saber-toothed mammals bristling at the rim, then a colossal shadow gliding in, silent as a rumor. Kleptoparasitism isn't a fancy word, it's a time hack. Arrive when the hide's breached, claim the softest cuts, and leave before ground trouble rallies. Argentavis had the wings and altitude to make that play. If humans shared that skyline, tactics follow. Travel tight, break under overhangs, cross open saddles at dawn, and post a lookout to call shadows. You can't outrun 6 meters of wing, but you can outschedule it, usually. Here's the behavior that keeps me up. Not speed, not strength, forcing. A wide-winged glider can pressure herds the way a sheepdog pressures flanks, nudging panic toward bad footing. One low pass, one bluff over a knife edge, and gravity volunteers as accomplice. A stumble becomes a fracture becomes access. The beak and neck do the rest. From ground level, it reads like fate. From the air, it's geometry and wind. File that under Argentavis truth. Patience plus terrain equals power. But there's one map I haven't shown, the one etched in dust and wind scars, pointing toward a reveal I didn't expect. Argentavis doesn't just live in museums, it lives in how you move through risk. The Miocene Andes taught it to trade flaps for thermals, to let ridge lift do the heavy work, to glide farther on less. You can do the same. Map your day like a sky. When energy peaks, launch. When turbulence builds, hold. When laminar evening settles, make the long glide. Plan crossings, hard calls, open meetings when the air favors you. Set bailouts the way climbers mark gullies. Power isn't only push. Often it's timing multiplied by patience. And timing can be learned, tested, and improved. Practice small launches daily. If we truly shared that skyline, survival would look boring by design. You'd move early or late, hug cover across exposed saddles, keep your group tight, and assign a skywatcher. Translate that to modern life. Limit midday heat, gossip, outrage, inbox storms. Then draft behind windbreaks like wiser peers. Choose ridgelines that give lift, not noise. Study the map of your week the way a glider studies cloud streets. Protect attention like fuel and land before you're empty. When weather shifts, and it will, don't fight the mountain. Reschedule, change altitude, pick another line, and live to launch again. Small, repeatable habits beat heroic flapping every time. Let's make this useful. What's your invisible wind this week? Curiosity, gratitude, a clean desk, a morning walk. Where are your rotors? Doom scrolling, late caffeine, that one meeting with crosswinds? Which ledges refill your strength and which siphon it dry? Post your answers below. I'm genuinely listening. Share one tactic you'll test, early launch windows, tighter groups, or a bailout list taped to your monitor. If Argentavis taught anything, let it be this. Patience isn't passive, it's preparation. Try it for 7 days, then report back with what lifted, what sank, and what surprised you. Invite a friend to fly the experiment with you for accountability. Before we land, one more shadow. Far from the Andes, the Mayas spoke of kamazats, the night god of the cenotes. Wings, teeth, and a humming darkness. Next episode, we'll step carefully into living tradition, separating spectacle from respect, myth from bat biology, fear from meaning. If the sky taught us timing, caves teach us echo. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss Forgotten Beasts, kamazats, night god of the cenotes. Bring your questions, your caution, and your wonder. We'll meet where limestone drinks starlight and sound maps the dark. And remember, curiosity is a compass that still works underground.